We got him off price. We got him off price. Declan Rice. We got him off price. Welcome back to the Instant Reaction. Arsenal 3. My hometown slapped. 0. Unbelievable performance. Yes, unbelievable performance. Unbelievable results.
Very good performance.
Very good performance. Very good performance. And yeah, really, really pleased. Look, we did what we had to do. We went out there. We needed that result. There was some not necessarily nervy moments, but I think that Saka penalty kind of put changed it.
Were you nervous? Actually,
yes, because we're in a title race. I was terrified. But
it was beautiful. I thought this was like one of our most comfortable home matches that I've seen all season. To be honest with you, there was nothing that I saw that Bournemouth were able to do in the first half. I think there was a flurry about 5, maybe 8 minutes into the second half that I felt like Bournemouth took advantage of transitions, especially with balls over the top. But generally speaking, I thought there was nothing that we didn't give them. And I think that David Raya needs to relax a bit. That's a couple games now that I feel that he's been responsible for changing some of the perspective on the match. But in general, I thought it was extremely comfortable, and our press was just absolutely insane.
I think we had to separate out what is actually going out on the pitch and what are the fans' feelings, or certainly my feelings. I was nervous. Does that mean the players were nervous? Does that mean the team were nervous? Maybe not. But I was certainly nervous. And I think there was elements of that performance that were really, 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 really encouraging for this stage of the season, and elements that we could probably talk about. So let's get into that. I think the first half an hour was unbelievable. We were so good. So good. Distancing was lovely. A couple of things I want to pick up on. Kai Havertz, his centre-forward play is becoming, really, really solid. In terms of the pockets he drops into, the link-up, the sort of the side he drops into, the spaces he occupies. It feels like he has this real depth of understanding of knowing, okay, this moment needs a bit of hold up. This moment needs a knock round the corner. This moment the ball needs to go back. It's like he's sort of orchestrating the final third place. What do you think of Havertz in that first half?
Yeah, I think that he offers something in terms of an outlet that is a little bit different to what we have in our front line. And I think that's what really gives us the most fluidity ultimately, because it's his movement across the line that helps. And I think that, you know, he's doing a lot of the things that we would ask between the boxes, but in the box is something that I still think that he's got to show a little bit more aggression in. And I think he does everything up until that point, and then a switch flicks. And, you know, for example, I know it wasn't the first half, but even in the second half, you know, in terms of the goal that's offside, that he doesn't know that's offside. Like in that moment, like that has, though, when you're talking about moments, and I'm talking about the top level, that isn't excusable, because you're at the top of the box there, and it's just very simple. But I think what he does give us, and he does offer a window in terms of how I'd like to rebuild the front line. And that is what I think is so brilliant about Kai Havertz, because I think his movement is what allows a lot of players to maybe operate more in the zones that they prefer. And the fact that he's able to overload either side is something that we're making use of. I still think he can do a bit more to overload left, and I still think that he can open up. I'd like to see his passing range opened up as well, because it's something that I've seen at Leverkusen that I still don't think that he's been able to do despite his renewed confidence. And I think that he's got a lot more to show in terms of his final ball. But in terms of the work that he does getting everybody into the final third effectively, and of course, the work that he does in terms of creating doubt in the defensive line. I think one of the big reasons that you really focus on a moving striker or a channel runner like that is because Bournemouth's low block isn't able to be low block when you've got somebody able to pull your center backs out of position like that. And that's really the point that I think I saw, at least. You know, I don't think he's doing it physically. I think it's just with intelligent movement. And there's a point when he chooses to put on the afterburners, and that's what's key.
Yeah, I think on the left-hand side thing, I think because we are right side dominant in terms of the combination players we have on that side, and such a key pod on that side with Saka and Odegaard, I'd be interested to see it next season. I think it's one of those things that's probably going to develop. It's a kind of chicken and egg thing. If Havertz doesn't support that side, can they flourish? But if the ball isn't going out to that side, is he going to go that side? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of chicken and egg thing. So I think it's kind of it's kind of I think to look at in terms of our dynamics. I also want to highlight Gabriel and Saliba, who I thought, especially in that first sort
Saliba,
of half hour,
wow.
we were looking at Saliba. Wow, so Thomas Frank quote. Yeah, I just thought in terms of their role in keeping us high, we talk about it, in terms of them going over their shoulder and sort of protecting us when teams go long, but actually when teams try and break out in sort of in the midfield and them just bashing you straight away, being the sort of that first line of contact and being so quick, being so ready, being so prepared, winning so many of those duels. I saw Arteta sort of maybe in the first 5-10 minutes, there was a moment where the camera cuts him and it went like, Willie, get into him. And you could see like from that moment, they sort of went forward. No pun intended. Moving on. But yeah, I just thought they were brilliant. And I think a couple of people said that they seem tired. I don't really agree. I think they look really,
Our
really
press
sharp.
was incredible. I thought
really,
our
really
press
sharp.
has been one of the sharpest today. At least you could see the change that a 5-day rest makes before
Yeah.
3 days. And I thought Bournemouth did absolutely zero in terms of their central progression. Like our press was so good, and it came from a point of where Bournemouth were forced wide quite a bit, and it wasn't until the second half that they tried balls over the top that I felt Bournemouth could have done a little bit better at. But there were times when I think Christie and even Cook received centrally and they were out of ideas. I mean, they were hurried really quickly. And I thought Thomas Partey was phenomenal defensively. Still
Yes.
think that there's still some things in terms of in possession that he's got to iron out. He's so vertical, so adventurous and chancy that you're always going to get those misplaced balls, I think, through a carry or a pass. But defensively, the way that he was able to really move the line up, because you know what, not just Mikel, but I did feel like our back line in general were slow to situations, and he was really important about moving the line up and making sure to carry that kind of intensity so that we could squeeze the pitch. Because I think our forwards were doing a lot of work. And I think clearly they didn't want Senesi really orchestrating too much, and they were happy to have long balls and defend those balls over the top. But as soon as Senesi was able to try to look inside, our press was sharp to it, and I thought it was brilliant.
Dr. Hank Venture says 96% possession through 24 minutes. If that is true, I think it might be sort of periods of the game, because I saw it was like last 5 minutes in 96 possession. I'm not quite sure that is exactly true, but it's certainly in the 80s or 90s in terms of that overall period. That was an unbelievable period. And I think on what you're saying about Christie and so on, I was surprised by how Bournemouth set up. In the moments they were building, they seemed to have that single pivot in Alex Scott. And I thought, and sort of, I think it was Christie occupying players a little bit further up. And I thought, a little bit dangerous for me. And then when they found their rhythm a little bit more in the second half, it's when they had a bit more of a pivot, a bit more structure in the midfield and someone that they could go to. So I was kind of shocked by that. But yeah, I just thought that opening half shocked. You know what I mean? That opening half hour, it's understandable when we're pressing that way. Of course, you're going to not sit back into a 5. You're going to be a little bit more conservative in your build up, and you're not going to be able to commit as many men forward. So partly we forced them to do that, but I wondered if they might go slightly braver, and then they did. Sort of opening of the second half. Bournemouth found a little bit more control. How do you think they did that? I think it was partly that, and also just partly a rhythm thing. I think they had Iraola's Spanish dulcet tones in their ear, and just a couple of passes from Arsenal don't go forward, and the vibe slightly changes.
All it takes is one kind of out ball from Saka to calm things down, and I think it's fine. I mean, there was a 5-minute period, 8-minute period maybe, where the game looked a little stretched in terms of us being a little bit slow out of the blocks, but I don't think Bournemouth were doing anything different. They were just going early and over Ben White, and they were finding some space while we were a little bit slow to have our line meet in terms of the midfield as well. So, and then once we got that sorted, again, it was out of sight, out of mind, and that's why I just thought, again, just one of the most comfortable home performances I've seen all season. It was really enjoyable. And I think some of the play that we were witnessing was phenomenal. Again, Martin Odegaard, I'm going to say it once, and I'm going to leave it from the left, providing just another beautiful assist. The way he sees the pitch in that area, the frustration I've got, and I have no problem starting on the right, but when you see that kind of movement and you see that kind of impetus, he is a completely different player from the left in terms of how vertical he's able to be, because the angles don't allow him to really overcomplicate some of the possession that I think at times he was able to do today. Like, he was definitely feeling himself, and it was a brilliant game from him. But there were moments where I just feel like you got to release the pass to Saka, either from the final third or stop carrying into him. Like, make sure that you're carrying to space. Don't carry to carry's sake. And, I think on the left, he doesn't do that. He doesn't have time to do that because the angles don't allow it.
Yeah.
So he's forced to be more vertical, and he shows better for it. So but I think he was brilliant this match. I think him or Saliba for man of the match for me, to be honest, because I think Martin Odegaard was brilliant throughout the whole 90 minutes, and he deserves rightful praise. I think he's been good for a while, but the way he was operating was another level.
Did you see that comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I see what you mean about the sort of the angle bias. I think it does force him to be a little more vertical. I'd like to throw in Declan Rice's name for the man of match. I thought was terrific, but we'll come to sort of individuals later. I was going to try and look at the stats and show you all our favourite stat, but unfortunately Scott hasn't yet posted it. So let's come to some incidents. The penalty. I thought maybe we could talk about the incidents as
It's
a kind
a
of
dive.
cluster, because it's a kind of cluster. Because I did
It's a
think
dive.
we were a little bit lucky today. Yeah, it's one of those things. Again, I think there was an article about this week that kind of got a lot of people's knickers in a twist about Ben White and sort of the dark arts and stuff. And I was on a podcast and I was sort of saying it's very hard to define what is dark arts and what is cheating, and that is a very grey area. So, we all know what the dark arts are. Havertz does, for me, leave his leg in. Does that then make it a dive? Sounds like you think it does, but to me, I don't know. I think it's arguably sportsmanship, arguably smart. You could look at it that way, or you could say it's a dive and we get away with one.
If that's given against us, you're fuming.
No, 100%. But I don't think that changes the fact that you could argue that it's sportsmanship and gamesmanship. Do you know what I mean? It's that constant line between.
Look at the text that we're saying. He's buying the penalty. He's drawing the contact.
But I think you have to play, within the range of the game. And look, I suppose it's the question: would I prefer he didn't do that? Honestly, no. If we're able to gain advantage from it, I'm actually okay with it.
No, I'm gonna be consistent because I'm gonna be fuming if that's against me. Like, it's a dive, but no problem. Like, I think we created far more in the match, so I'm not gonna be focused on it. I mean, I think it's a dive. He's buying the contact. He knows what he's doing, and there's no contact that forces him to go over to do that. I mean, he leaves his leg there, and he's hoping that contact is made. It's not that the contact is forcing him over. He's leading in. It's with his trailing leg. His lead leg doesn't get hit, and he's already going down. So I think it's definitely something that he's looking for. And he's smart. I mean, Harry Kane's made a career out of it. So I mean, he's bought it. And kudos to him, because I don't think we do that enough.
Would you prefer he wouldn't do it? Would you prefer he didn't do that?
I would prefer that it just is not done, period, or that the officials go and call that, because it's acting. It's not something that I approve of in terms of how I approach the game. I think we're fully capable of scoring goals without relying on that kind of thing. And if refs were more consistent at stopping that in the game, I think every fan would agree to it, because I think every rival that gets that conceded against them is pissed, and they can agree that ultimately it's not sportsmanship for me in the game, because it's not. You're deceiving the ref. That it is what it is, right? Like, I mean, I have to call a spade in that sense, but I think it's his movement again that causes the issue, and that's what you want to highlight.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I think I have a slightly different take on it. I think if the referees were consistent, across all teams and so on, I'd probably be supportive of that. But while these things are given, I don't want us to miss out because of that. So personally, I would encourage the players to. And again, it's that fine line between, you said it's not sportsmanship, and I'd probably agree with you, but I would say it's gamesmanship. It's that slightly, slight sort of.
I just think it's a slippery slope, because if you start saying that, then you've got to be okay with some of the other things that we're not okay with in terms of that aren't called, and that's where. Again, I just feel like if we were able to, in a vacuum, say the refs are going to be more stringent on that type of thing, things are going to get reviewed, and everyone's going to apply the same thing, then I think that in an ideal world, I wouldn't like to see that.
Yeah, I agree. I think in an ideal world, I agree with you in terms of if it was consistent across the Premier League. But for me personally, while it's not, I'd rather us be benefiting from the unfairness than be the ones constantly not benefiting from the unfairness, even though overall structurally it is unfair. Do you see what I mean? Personally, it's just where I sit. Let's talk about Thomas Partey. Space Rocky, thank you so much for your contribution. Thomas Partey, great player, but he's a walk-in transition that we don't need at Old Trafford. Thoughts on Thomas Partey's performance before we go back to the incidents?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Defensively, he was just absolutely incredible. I still think in possession, he's something that he needs to Well, you know what? It's not that he needs to. He's never going to change. He's so vertical. Like his first thought is to go forward. And I think that look, we need a little bit of that gambling, that bravery between the lines. I think in isolated moments, it's definitely something that, I'd look to try to fix, but it's just not him. So I think that you create a structure that you allow him to be that free animal, and we have, right? And so it's just he's the beautiful symmetry between Declan Rice and himself in the pivot.
Yeah.
For somebody that's so overtly vertical, combined with probably one of the most defensively sound and defensively incredible players in kind of the world in Declan Rice, you're allowed to afford those kind of chances and those adventure. But I think he's really starting to step up. And look, mate, I remember having this on pods before. We're all going to have conversations about what the Thomas Partey performances are going to have, because it's never been equality. It's never been equality. It's always been an issue about your availability, and it's been an issue about whether we can trust you to be in the team. Period. Because when you are in the team, you're a difference maker, and you make players around you safe. Like look at Declan Rice, and how many times have you felt Declan Rice be this free? And it's not coincidence. Like consistently, every time he plays, he doesn't feel like he needs to be three men. He doesn't feel like he needs to be Superman, and that's evident in the pitch.
Yeah, I think we'll come to sort of the individuals a little bit later on. We'll definitely talk about Declan Rice. The next thing, firstly, the penalty was credit to Bukayo Saka in terms of how he managed that moment. I think he, in terms of the pressure that was on him in that moment, I think he did really, really well. And it's such a cool, calm penalty. Fair play to him. The incident with Bournemouth's disallowed goal, I have no idea what happened. I was totally lost. So so it was a push on. They disallowed it for a push on Raya, but did they look at the Gabriel?
I think that
Billing?
was. Well,
I don't know.
I think they can't be Raya. That's not a foul.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it's like a tiny push.
No, no, that can't be Raya. I think it definitely was I would assume it was the foul on Gabriel that led to the soft touch and grazing of David Raya.
Yeah.
So I'd say the foul on Billing is definitely the one that they should have pulled it back on. If they pulled it back on Raya, that's ridiculous. Again, I will maintain it's horrific officiating.
Yeah. We I think we got away with a couple of moments today. The Trossard goal was lovely moment for Declan Rice. I think again, he was speaking this week in the article he did to Athletic about the off-ball runs. And I think in both of his moments where he gets the assist on the goal, you can see the sort of the off-ball running that he's asked to do as an 8 and the benefits from that. It's a great finish from Trossard. We'll come on to Trossard in the individuals in a second, and then a great finish at the end. Let's have a look. I'm trying to get, guys, I know you're salivating for the field tilt. Here we go. We've got it. Scott's literally just posted it. Does Scott Willis know how famous he is on the instant reaction on Cannon Podcast?
I don't think he does.
We should get one day so he can give us the field tilt live. Let's have a look. Hey, let's go, baby. 71.3%.
Look at that first half. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. That is gorgeous. And you can, I think we all felt that in terms of that sort of opening half an hour. We were really, really dominant. It's probably a little bit of a dip, and then the end of the first half, a little, as you said earlier, sort of 8-10 minute period at the start of the second, and then most of the time we were fine. So I think that's understandable. 3.6 xg, including one penalty, to 0.6 xg. Again, that shot map is just so nice. It's you're just not getting, well, apart from this one, you're just not getting any decent chances in.
I told you, mate. One of the most comfortable home performances I think that I've seen this season. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, tell that to my heart rate. Then the running XG in here, you can see our dominance playing out over there. Shots on target 9-2, open play shots 18-5, possession.
Expected threat. Look at
expected
that.
Threat was, where are we? Expected threat.
5.8 in the middle, right?
Oh, there it is. 5.8 to 0.9. I don't actually know what expected threat is.
It's like, I actually don't know how they create the model, but I think it's very similar to like XG, except they must add in terms of another portion of where you were at, because I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I think the final third entries numbers is probably related to how many times Bournemouth sort of got us on the transition. I think in fairness to Bournemouth, like they have a really interesting game model with how they use Solanke and have the players running off them. I think like Kluivert and I think they this Utara and sort of players like that, and Semenyo, like they're all really good runners off Solanke. I think they play well, but to be fair to us, I think we neutralised them really well and dealt with them. Let's come to the individuals then. Let's go through the team. You have first pick, George. Go on. Who do you want to talk about? You don't even have to start with the goalkeeper. You can talk about anyone.
Anyone. William Saliba, because I don't think that we've highlighted him enough personally. Like, I think what a performance. I think he's taking a lot more steps in terms of responsibility and build up, especially in carrying. I know it's something that we've talked about on the pod that we really want to see. I think he was so good today, and I feel like the few times that we were a little bit suspect in transition, I felt comfortable because William Saliba was there, and there was just one of those performances that he married both defensive grit but with a real elegance in terms of in possession, and he was a constant outlet for us. And I just feel like this was one of his better carrying games, which I'm really starting to highlight because I feel that there's so much like untapped potential there for me. And I feel he can take more responsibility on the ball in terms of Ben White can trust him and he can get out of the zone. You know, I think we can gamble a bit more from there. But yeah, Saliba, what's more to say than he's just brilliant? He's just simply one of the most elegant center backs in the world.
Yeah. And there was a moment he could have scored. He was through on goal and he cut back on his left. It was so nice. It was lovely. Okay. I will go for... I'm going to go for Tomiyasu. I thought Tomiyasu, and credit to him today because I think he had a slightly more advanced role. Sometimes I find in the final third he's a little bit club-footed. Is probably the way to put it. A little bit. There's not that sort of, you know, the master of this is Martin Odegaard. I'm not holding him to those standards, but you see the sort of the dexterity in his feet and his footwork in the final third. Sometimes Tomiyasu bounces off him a little bit. I actually thought today he had a really good performance in that sense. His passing was a little bit crisper, a little bit better, a lot more advanced. He did a lot of running, and I think considering it wasn't his best performance in the North London derby last week, credit to Tomiyasu because I thought he had a good game. Shut down Bournemouth wingers a couple of times. I think he's probably, if we look at our left back options at the minute, without Jurriën Timber, he's probably our most complete left back in all phases. I'm not saying the best necessarily, because I think it depends what you mean by best and what role you want him to play. But if you're looking at sort of in every phase, in you know, the availability he gives you, the build up, the final third stuff, how he can help you in the middle third, the transition stopping, probably overall 1v1 defending, he's probably our best left back. Maybe not for specific roles, but if that makes sense. So yeah, I thought Tomiyasu had a really, really good performance. Next pick is yours.
I mean, we've talked about Declan Rice, Partey, Martin Odegaard. I mean, we could maybe talk about Trossard, another performance where I feel like he probably struggled to influence the game, but then pulls up with a crucial goal.
His output is mad. What's like starts to output must be some of the best in the squad tenure. Like it's
the best in the squad by a margin, and I feel like he gives us so much defensively that I think in possession you're looking for more, and at least certainly that's the impression I got from the first half that he was peripheral to the match, and he's almost inevitable in the sense that he will provide a significant impact every match, and I think it's gone beyond the point for me where it's just form per se. Like his minutes, his goal to minutes ratio is incredible. And I just think he constantly makes the right decisions in the key moments. And if we're looking at talking about a moments player, he is that, while also giving quite a bit to the collective, because I think a lot of our press doesn't happen, by the way, if Trossard's not able to continue a lot of the work that he was doing. And I know people don't want to talk about that because when you talk about a forward player, you're looking for moments. But he was just so strong defensively, and he has been even in the North London derby. Again, another one where he just wasn't influential in possession, but out of possession, so key to our press.
Yeah, just done some very on the fly goal and assist numbers. So for 2,037 minutes in all competitions this season, he has a goal or an assist every 119 minutes. That's got to be one of our best numbers. You know, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And in terms of price and wage and availability and all that sort of stuff, in terms of maximizing a squad number, I spoke about this with Jesus. You know, how do you maximize every single squad registration place you have? Trossard has got to be one of the best in the Premier League in terms of maximizing, in terms of your availability, your output, your minutes, your professionalism, your experience, what he gives you in terms of, yeah. And I completely agree with you on the out of possession stuff. I think what doesn't he give us that Martinelli, what does he give us that Martinelli doesn't? Because there is something, it feels like Martinelli is brilliant when camped in the box and getting out to you, but it feels like in the middle third, Trossard nicks the ball off you a bit more. There's more of a kind of a sort of backwards defending that I don't know whether Martinelli, maybe this isn't fair, but just trying to work it out, because there is something that Trossard gives us out of possession that Martinelli hasn't quite got at the minute.
For me, it's an understanding of triggers. Martinelli goes early of triggers, like in the press, because he stays in his zone and he stays in his block a lot more than Martinelli. And if you actually watch, Martinelli's quite wide and he doesn't retreat into the middle third, especially when the ball's on the other side. And so it leads to him having to run more. And I think he's peripheral to the press, whereas Trossard is happy to go into the pockets and stay in the middle third. So that point that you're talking about, where you see, at least for him, that he nicks things more in the middle third, I think it's because he's there more often and he's in the block more often. And so I don't think it's a tackling thing. Like, I don't think it's a skill thing, but it's an understanding of space and about when you need to get out of your trigger to meet your opponent and when to stay in, and allowing the game to go to you a little bit more. I think Martinelli knows that he's not in form and he's chasing the game a bit, both in respects to his in possession and out of possession play. And I think Trossard is a little bit comfortable in terms of having that trust, in a sense. And you can just see that difference right now. Actions aren't as rushed. Still think he needs to do a bit more in terms of being decisive when he has the ball, especially when he's receiving it in his own third. I think he's so technical. He's so brilliant that there are times that he does overcomplicate some of the pass and does a little mazy dribble that I think he can just release quickly. But all in all, I think he is value for money. Has there been a better January transfer signing that you've seen in the last 18 months, let's say?
Mate, and I'm looking around the league. I'm looking around the league for January transfers.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think there is. So it's a tough one, right? Because I actually think he was one of the worst players in possession today. And it's the same thing I was saying in the North London derby. And then he sits there with an output. He's so key defensively. And I think it's just, he's key in the moments that Arsenal aren't key. And if you're going to solve something like that, then it's brilliant. I mean, that's why you're starting for me.
Yeah. I suppose what I say about the in possession thing is, like, someone has to be the worst. Do you know what I mean? And like, we have so many good in possession players that if your left winger, who's not having your most touches and isn't involved in that aspect of the play as much as your central players and often, and even on our left hand side, it
looks worse than it is.
Yeah. If you had to pick someone to be your worst in possession, would you argue in Arsenal system it's okay if it's the left winger? Do you know what I mean? What you want from there is output. Really is what you want. So, mate, honestly, unbelievable. We'll come to some questions. So please put all your questions and topics.
I need to ask you first, Gabriel offside goal. Is there a better offside goal that you're going to see?
Unbelievable. Off the shin as well. Complete shinner. Mate, I was like, oh! It was one of them, like, ah! Yeah, unbelievable. And then the reaction when he found out he was offside. It's so what's so annoying? Whatever. It is offside. It is offside. But those moments, you just want them so bad. And honestly, we could have had a moment today where William Saliba Cruyff turns himself into a left-footed goal in the
he loves third, Bournemouth, doesn't
he? And Gabriel whacks one top bins. And mate, I think I said a couple of years ago on a podcast, I think the next big transition in football would be goal scoring centre backs, like centre backs who become the spare man. I'm not even joking.
Beckenbauer.
Who become the spare man it's unbelievable. So let's come to some questions and put all your sort of topic suggestions and stuff in the chat. However, George, we wait for Man City to play Wolves later on today. 2 games left of the season. We're 4 points clear. City have 2 games in hand. Like, this is turning into an unbelievable season. An unbelievable season.
It's factually now, even if they drop points, there's one more game, to be fair. But I still think it's going to go to the end of the season, I guess, is my point. And it's just brilliant to be in that position. It really is brilliant. And fundamentally, I'm just happy that either team makes history on this side of the coin. Arsenal have probably their best goal return in the Premier League era and their best overall performance that we've seen across the season since the Invincibles. And then Man City factually break a record for the longest unbeaten run if they have to win it this way. So, and so does Pep. So it's just like, yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those that, you know, you're tearing your hair out, but I'm so proud. I'm so proud of the
Yeah.
boys. And I'm sitting there smiling. I'm sitting there smiling every match knowing I'm gonna win. And
Glad you
I
are, mate.
yeah.
I'm terrified.
No, no, I'm sitting there extremely it's what the team transmits, mate, to me. Like, I haven't seen a frantic side to it, and you know what? There was a really important for me response that we've done recently in the run-in that I hope we can talk about with context, and I hope we can with the Premier League trophies so that people can see. But our run-in, mate, have a look at, the numbers, the consistency, bar the wobble of the 2 Bayern games and the Villa 45 minutes. We have
Yeah.
shown a different side
Yeah.
to Arsenal's ability to respond
Yeah.
in adverse conditions, and it's being not talked about because we're all nervous about a title. But this robotic form that Arsenal are on, like we joke about the unbeaten run with City, mate. Our I know it's not the same unbeaten run because we lost to Villa, but
Like
mate,
the points gained in this period
the
is
points
wild.
gained,
Yeah.
it's insane, and
It's,
it's going to be the difference. It's
I
going to be
think
the difference.
I think it's something like 40 from 45 or so. It's just it's something crazy in, like the numbers are wild. Yeah, look,
Yeah,
as I say, I'm to be clear, me being nervous doesn't mean the team are nervous and it doesn't mean the team are bad. It's just,
yeah, yeah,
we're in this position for the first time and I sit there in the games jiggling my knees and going, please, please, please win. But if we're actually doing proper analysis and seeing what the team are doing, they're showing us a different face. They're showing us a different side of them. They are, I just look at that penalty from Bukayo Saka today, and I'm like, that's someone who is ready to take that next step. We know Saka is a brilliant player. We know, Declan Rice is a brilliant player. It's these moments where you go, actually, do you know what? I'm going to wait for the goalkeeper to move, and I'm just going to slot it in because I know we're going to win this game. And
yeah.
that Man City have that level of like trust in themselves to go, and that's what it is really. I think we're developing a trust in ourselves to go. We know we can beat you off a set piece. We know we can run faster than you. We know we can physically battle you. We know, we can, we have so many different ways of beating you. And I think what you say about, even in the Villa game, 45 minutes might even be a bit conservative because
It is.
it was two incidents really, and a bit of a back and forth game, and maybe a couple of minutes here and there where we're not in control. Bayern put 45 fullbacks on Bukayo Saka and slightly shithouse their way to a win, and we don't have a moment's play, and we kind of knew that. So if we're really being honest about, and you could take any angle you want and say, well, we didn't get over the line, so we're terrible. Get rid of him. But looking at it in, I hope, what is the most objective way possible, we are in incredible form. We found something at the back end of this season that we can take forward and move forward. And it is, I do feel this many faces of the team thing is really what I've taken away. We've become a juggernaut, and
You,
that's
you
what's
know
City.
You know what it is for me? The reason I highlight this is because a lot of people at least have told me, and I saw the Paul Merson quotes about what is the effect of going through a title run in this manner and then losing it on a young team. Uh, well, mate, for me, it shows that you can fight and you can do it this early. What does that mean? It's brilliant for the future because that's their first experience.
Yeah,
Like, I don't sit there and say, as a kid, if you fail once, are you afraid that they're never going to amount to anything? No, I think the fact that you fail so brilliantly at the beginning of your career only is up in terms of your
yeah,
trajectory. It only helps you and gives you experience. And I just think that there's certain players, and I think I've said this in a recent pod, that I'm recognizing as the best players in their position with each passing week. I think like last year, Gabriel is probably our most improved player, but I think he's moved into one of the best center backs in the world. Ben White has moved into one of the best right backs in the world. He was very good last season. They were all excellent players, but
yeah.
that next steps of being the best players in their position,
Yes.
I'm slowly looking across the pitch and I'm saying, oh yeah, you're there. You're there as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Martin Odegaard, you're there. Declan Rice, you're there. Bukayo Saka, you're there.
Yep.
So it's part of maturity. And I
Yep.
think when we start to build a squad that's an average age of 23 and change, that's what you're going to see. That beautiful understanding of they know they're good, but do they believe it? And they're starting
Yes.
to believe.
Yes. Mate, I think that's a brilliant point about the best players in the world, and I start to look at who can get there next season. If David Raya has another season like this, you have to start. You have to. He's Golden Glove. Like what we're going to do? Just ignore the fact he's a Golden Glove. And Arsenal are pushing in the title race, and he's part of the reason for that. You have to start looking at David Raya next season and say, what conversations is he in? Is he in the George Petrovic conversations, or is he in those Edison Addison conversations? Let's ask that question. Not yet, but next season and moving forward. And Jurriën Timber coming into the team, we if he's in the right system, if he develops in the right way we expect him to, why can't we be having that conversation in 6-12 months time about him and every position across the pitch? And we also don't know who we're going to sign, so it's really exciting. Abdulmajid Durajai smashed it. Would you take an offer for Martinelli 50 million in the summer from a top Premier League side? No.
Come on.
No chance. My thing with Martinelli, actually, I don't think I've said this to you. I've said it, maybe you haven't had a chance to come back on it. My thing with Martinelli is I think Martinelli is guaranteed to be a top player. Like I really see it in his game, and I don't think he gets the time he does from Arteta without it. My thing is, I wonder whether we have the time in our project to wait for him to get there. That's my question. That's my question mark around Martinelli.
He's already been there. He scored 15 non-penalty goals in the league last season. It's setting the record for Brazilian. He's there. I mean, I want to have a conversation about this because it's a much larger conversation. But I don't think you can objectively say that we're agreeing that the left winger in our system, no matter who it is going to be the least influential player on the pitch, and then marry that with, are we able to see the ceiling of Martinelli reach his potential? Because you can't sit there and logically say we're just going to sacrifice one side of the pitch, and we factually do, and it's working for us, which is brilliant. But that's not a sustainable way of maximizing this team. And I think if you maximize the team, there's no reason to say why he can't be maximized as an individual. And there's talent there that he offers things that this team doesn't have. And I think, like, in moments, who was our best run-in player last year? Martinelli, by a clear distance too. So in terms of people rising to the moment, I think he's somebody that absolutely can. He's in a tough period in terms of the team, but I have no doubts about him in terms of influencing the team in the long term. And I think that his development is simply a consequence of what we're doing with our system as opposed to him as a player.
Maybe we should have this on the pod because I hear the systemic issues and concerns, and I don't think that can necessarily be debated. I do think on the levels we saw last season, Martinelli is a special finisher. He's a special finisher, but to become a top,
our best finisher in the squad.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. But I look at his out of possession work. I look at his influence on games. I look at the performances, at some points this season in terms of the confidence. I just still think there's question marks. I'm not, and we've seen him hit certain levels, but I think we've seen him hit certain levels in terms of output. Is his all-round game at the kind of the world-class level? I don't think it is yet. So, and can he get there? By the way, I absolutely think he can. But I think for me, last season, it's not to say it papered over any cracks because he's a brilliant player, but he's just still developing for me. But maybe we should have this conversation on the pod. I think it'd be quite interesting. Okay, let's come to a couple more questions. Martinelli as centre forward should be a big development potentially. You can't even buy his left leg. Oh, we just got two super chats. Thank you, Khalid G. Martinelli needs an Old Trafford goal, miss Copa America and reset to get into preseason with a new CM, new left back, and Timber spent hours with them. Yeah, I think it's maybe we should do this on the back of like a whole pod on Martinelli.
You have to. I have a lot to say on it.
Yeah. Because this season has slightly passed him by, but when someone says that, you go, oh, well, that must be him. No. I think there's a lot of things that are going on. I also believe he needs to reset individually.
There is individual stuff that he can do in terms of in the final third. He hasn't been as clinical as last year, and that's on him, no matter how poor the dynamics might be around you. I mean, and he's not in enough of those positions to be sharp in those moments, but you still should be sharp, and you're still going to criticize those moments.
Yeah, I think in terms of his I suppose what I'm really saying is the influence on us as a force. really is Martinelli one of our most influential players? So then, can we consider? He's as I say, he's a brilliant finisher, but then can we
I'm
consider
gonna
him
have a
as one of
question
our?
for you to mull over, and we're gonna do this on the pod.
Okay.
But do we give more time for high touch players?
Oh,
We talk
absolutely,
about influence, and
absolutely.
we need to understand the marrying between low touch and high touch, and what constitutes influence.
Yep.
Because I think if you're gonna highlight moments, we're actually looking for a low touch moments player broadly in the
Hmm.
squad. And
Yeah.
so taking us to the next step probably relies upon somebody
Mhm.
that is more low touch
Yeah.
than high touch.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those. Can Martinelli become that player in this system? Can he be supported to do that? That's another huge question. But then,
Yeah.
will we see again? It comes back to my question: will we see his top level at Arsenal? I think it's a big question. Lance, where do you guys think we need to spend the most money in this coming window? It doesn't have to be record breaking, but just the most. Go on, George.
Transitional inevitability.
Guys, he just said
Simple.
Marcus Rashford. Did you hear that? He did just say that. It's not just me. He just said it. He just said it.
No, we need it. I need it.
I need that.
I need that. I need that. It's absolutely the most important thing for me because I just look. I've had a big debate. It's another thing we should probably talk about on the pod. People are seriously into this idea of a left central midfielder being absolutely the need, and I just don't agree. I think if you start looking at who we've missed, it's created this perception that that's the problem area. But fundamentally, I think that if we were able to maximize transitions, which includes, by the way, searing pace, which needs to include, by the way, inevitable ball striking to a certain degree, I think that you're going to find a lot of the issues in this team disappear, and you're going to find a lot of teams unable to even give us the time and space that they do now. It has a knock-on effect, and I think that we have an ability to squeeze the pitch. That means can we improve in certain moments in midfield? Sure, but the dominance that we show between the middle third, our build up, and entering the box, by the way, we are the team that enters the penalty box the most in the league by a margin, by a huge margin. We don't have a problem getting the ball to goal. We have a problem getting the ball in the net.
In the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So that is something that I need.
Yep. Yep. Final question, lads. Arsenal are great, but how does Drake recover from the Kendrick diss?
Oh
Have you
God.
seen all this? I watched it. It was. I don't really understand it, but I listened to Kendrick's Drake diss. It is. He's like, "You're a horrible father. You don't deserve to be alive. You've hidden your kids. You manipulate women. Jesus Christ." Right. We'll finish there before we go to other topics. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you all joining us after this game on the Instant Reaction. We'll be back for the main pod on Monday. Subscribe to the Cannon Podcast on Spotify, etc. Find us on Patreon. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial, and you can check out all the exclusive content we put out on there. Check out George on Twitter at GeorgeV_AFC. Check me out on Twitter at
We got him half price.
We got him half price. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you very soon. Peace.
Peace.